Hello everyone, welcome to a new video today. This is not a process video, this is a flip through video. I had previously done a flip through of my TN insert, which is what I have here, of the first one I did about the books I read. So that one is on my channel if you haven't seen it yet. This is the second one. I recently finished my second insert and I wanted to share it with you. This isn't strictly travel related, though I could kind of get away with that, I think, saying that when I read, I travel to a million different places. So I just wanted to share my creative efforts in case you're also interested in scrapping and journaling about the books that you read. The cover of my TN insert number 2 for my books, this is just a digital Project Life card that I printed out, inked it, and stuck it on the front with some washi. That's it. So it's pretty simple. So here's my opening page. Didn't do too much with this either. This is another card, a pocket card that I got in a set about reading. So I chose to use that here and kind of left it at that. I don't go super detailed in my TNs that I do about books. I try to use a lot of scraps that I have so that I'm not cutting into brand new things, because this is a smaller size and it works well for that. So here's my first one. And most of the books that I read that are included in here, I actually enjoyed. There were a couple that were eh. This was one that was eh. I read that for book club and had mixed feelings about it. So I'll zoom in right there so you can see the titles of these in case you want to read them. This one I read for, it was supposed to be an art tour at MIA, which is the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. They do book tours, so you read the book and then you go around and you look at the art that goes with it. So this was one of those selections, and it was about the aftermath of 9/11 and creating a fictional memorial for it. And it was a tough read. It was good, but it was tough. So if you decide to read this one, just be warned, it might be a little tough on you. This book is in a series that I'm reading. It's an Irish author. I love Irish literature. So if you enjoy that, you might like this series too. And then The Girl Under the Olive Tree. This was another one that was for book club, and it was kind of hard to find. What's interesting is that it had really good recommendations on Amazon and Goodreads, but yet my library didn't carry it. I had trouble finding it even through like Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I did finally locate it and got it, and it was an excellent book. So I'm not sure why it was so hard to find. This is a book that was actually recommended by my physician. So I decided to read it. I made it most of the way through. The back portion of it is just a lot of like meal planning stuff, so I didn't read all of that. But the science behind it was quite interesting. And then A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. This is a classic, and I had never read it. Decided to try it, and it was okay. I'm a little surprised by its classification as a classic. Maybe I'm missing something, and I was a lit major in my undergrad life. So I don't know. I was a little bit surprised. I did enjoy it, but I don't know that I would put it on my list of, 100 top books or anything. But it was all right. This one I absolutely loved. It's about a bookstore. How am I not gonna love it? Because I love books in general. So I wanted to put some things in the background that worked with that kind of had a font or typography theme to it. So I thought that worked pretty well. Perks of Being a Wallflower. I liked the paper I chose to go with this because it matched well, but the book itself, didn't care for it. This is another one that I know a lot of people love it. My daughter absolutely loves it and is actually who recommended it to me, and I just really did not care for it. The writing style just was not for me. This was a book about Van Gogh, but historical fiction. So not completely accurate historical fiction, but I did enjoy it. I had a lot to say here, obviously, because I've got quite a bit of journaling. Oh yeah, this one. So this came up in my recommended section on Goodreads, and it was about Ireland, so I'm like, sure, I'll read that. Yeah, it turned out to be a romance, and not a good one. So I was quite disappointed, but I was like halfway invested by then, so I finished the thing, but I will not be reading the rest of the series because it's just not my thing. And then I also started rereading the Harry Potter series when I was doing this, and so I was on Half-Blood Prince at this time, and so I just typed out a quote from the book, cut it out into strips, put it on there, and then journaled about how I felt like going back to it to read it again. So that was an interesting experience to, you know, have quite a few years in between when I read it the last time and now. This is another Irish book. It's not in the series that I mentioned before. This is separate. It's called Galway Bay, but it does take place in Ireland, and then they immigrate to the United States, and it was fascinating. Absolutely enjoyed it. I just realized looking at this, you know what? I think I meant to color in the stars to show what I thought of it, and I didn't do it, so I will have to go back and do that. And The Red Coat, I read this one because it's historical fiction again, and it takes place in Boston. And I knew when I was reading it that I was going to be taking a trip to Boston, so I thought it would be fun to get a little historical background, and I highly enjoyed this book as well. Then, when I was done going through the Harry Potter series, I also started reading the Narnia series again. So here is The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. And again, it had been interesting to go back because it had been an even longer stretch from when I read these the last time till now. So going back to them was a joy. I loved it. So I have a lot of those in this one. So here's Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then right on to Prince Caspian. And with these, I actually did the audiobooks, and I highly recommend those if you can get them on Audible. They're fantastic. And this was just a book that I picked up. It's historical fiction as well. I really like that genre, so I would recommend this one. And then All the Light We Cannot See. My daughter had read this one, recommended it as well, and I'd seen it on the bestseller list. But there was so much hype about it that I wanted to wait till that died down a while to read it, and it was totally worth it. So if you haven't read it yet, you should, especially if you're interested in war history, World War II in particular. This is from a dual perspective, French perspective and German perspective, so it's quite fascinating to read that. I started a new series as well, Harley Merlin. This came recommended for fans of Harry Potter, and so I thought I'd give it a whirl. And I can't say that I loved it as much as Harry Potter, but I did find it interesting. So I probably will read the rest of the series, but just not right away. And I happen to have this acrylic piece that I had bought. I think it's from Colorcast Designs, in a reading set. And I held on to this because at the time that I bought it, I wasn't reading a lot on my iPad. But I have been more now. So I held on to it, and I'm so glad because it matched this paper. I had some washi that worked, and it went well. So this is another one that I reread because I knew I was going to New York to see the play on Broadway of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. So I reread it and talked a little bit about my thoughts there. And then it was back to Narnia. So Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Book 3. This is my favorite in the series. Read this one. I've read 1, 2, and 3 the most out of that series. So I didn't have a huge amount to say because I knew it very well already. So then I went on to other things. And just when I thought I was done with World War II books, nope. This came up as a deal on Chirp, which is an audiobook site that's kind of like Audible, except you don't have to have a monthly subscription. You can just buy books outright. And this one was on sale, I think, for $1.99 or maybe $2.99. Sounded interesting, so I read it and I loved it. So if you're looking at items on Chirp, this is a good one. And then this is another one, A Man Called Uwe, that when this came out, I knew it was a bestseller, but again, so much hype I thought, I'm going to wait till that dies down when I can actually get a copy, and I'll read it then. And it came up on Sherpa as well, and I think $2.99, very cheap, and so I couldn't resist. And I'm so glad I bought it, because I think this is one that I will actually go back and listen to again. I literally laughed, cried, like ugly cried at some points. So if you haven't read this, do it, but be prepared. It's very, very emotional. Then I went back to Narnia again, so The Horse and His Boy. I hadn't read this one as often, so it was really good to revisit that. And I love this wood veneer piece. I think this was from Colorcast Designs as well. It maybe came in a set of theirs, so you get acrylics and this, if I remember. And I love these. They're super thin, but they look great, so you can add them in a TN, and it doesn't add a lot of bulk, which is perfect. And then my last one in this TN is The Silver Chair. So I was still working on Narnia, and I hadn't read this one as much either, so I had a little bit more to say about that. And then what I chose to do here is I actually glued the last pages in there because I wanted to stop here, and I don't like using the back cover as a layout if I can help it. So I stopped here. So that is my TN number 2 about the books I read. I'm currently part of the way into number 3 already. I've been reading a lot this year, which is great. So expect at some point that you will see a walkthrough of number 3. Thanks for watching, everyone.